welcome to the 5th ISME SARC conference. Just to go back a little bit, two very different stories and two very different beginnings. One began in 1953, emerging from a UNESCO conference that recognized music education as an essential part of general education following World War II, with the hope of rebuilding peace and fostering community. The second was conceived in the mind of a lady by the name of Audi in Calcutta in the mid-80s, and the school was born in 1987, with the vision to provide students the opportunity to learn music in a disciplined and engaging environment, and also to provide music teachers like you and me here a professional space to grow and learn. Over the years, both ISME and the BSM have worked tirelessly to make music education accessible to people of all ages, to create platforms for musicians around the world, and to create meaningful musical conversations. It is with this deeply shared foundation that here the Bangalore School of Music is very, very pleased to welcome you all to the 5th conference. Our late founder, Mrs. Aruna Sundarlal, I don't know if any of you know her, she was the keynote speaker in the 2014 ISME conference held at the NGMA. And 12 years later, here we are again to welcome you all. So again, thank you all for coming. I know we have people from Sri Lanka, people from Nepal, Hong Kong, Bangalore, Chennai, Atinagar, Koramangala. If you live in Bangalore, you know these are all different cities. But anyway, thank you all for coming. And of course, before we move forward, this would not be possible without our sponsors. Amplify Her, Sempre, ABRS in India, Fatah Music, Beverage Beers Private Limited, Shangri-La Bangalore, Harmony the Music School, and Illicity. So we look forward to 3 meaningful days of conversation, of engagement, of lots of lively performances, and lots of conversations over tea and coffee and over lunch. So again, thank you all for coming. Before we begin, as is the cherished tradition of the Bangalore School of Music, we would like to invite a few guests to light our ceremonial lamp. If I could invite Mr. Vikram Sundarlal, who is the Managing Trustee of the BSM, to please come. Could I invite Mr. Boa Leong, the past president of ISME, to please light the lamp. Welcome. Okay, next can I have Sandra Oberoi, the founder and director of Harmony School, Bangalore, who's also been a part of ISME, and who's also our conference co-chair. So, like second. A big round of applause to Sonia Khan, ABRS India head, who's here with us today. He's done a lot for music, education in India and overseas. Thank you. Vidya Subramanian, who's our first keynote speaker. Please come and learn. Okay, we start with a special welcome song. The song that you are going to hear today is performed by the BSM Chorale, led by our voice faculty, Kirti Harlekar. This song was composed by Pandit Ravi Shankar for the 1982 Asian Games, with the Sanskrit lyrics by Narendra Sharma. We have some of our faculty, our students performing. So please give a big round of welcome to the students and faculty presenting Swagata.
Swagata,
We next have on stage a performance by students of the Nritya School of Art. A multifaceted personality, distinguished Bharatanatyam artist and guru, life coach and author Gayatri, has captivated audiences across India and all over the world with her artistry and passion for dance. As the founder of the Nritya School of Art, she upholds the traditional Guru Shishya Parampara while nurturing discipline, creativity, and cultural values through the rich heritage of classical dance. As she beautifully says, rhythm is my heart and dance is my artistry. A warm welcome to Gayatri and to the students of the Nritya School of Art.
Good morning. We, the students of Dr. Guru Srimati Gayatri Chandrasekhar from Nritya School of Art, Bangalore, will be presenting a folk-inspired Bharatanatyam piece called Pachamala Pagaramala. This piece highlights the rich cultures and traditions of the Gypsy women of Tamil Nadu called Kurati. They were dressed in very colorful attire. They came from mountains such as Nilgiri Hills. They wore peacock feathers on their heads because it was easily available around them. And they also wore multiple layered necklaces with beads. This was not just part of their identity, but also part of their livelihood. They adorned themselves with bangles and handcrafted jewelry. They also made and wove baskets and collected honey from the wilderness. They were famously known as fortune tellers who could read their palms, read others' palms, and tell their futures. People from all walks of life, including kings, would come to get their palms read and seek guidance. This piece has extremely lively rhythm and expressive movement that reflect the grace, confidence, and lives of the Kurati women. Presenting Pachamala Pagaramala.
Paramashivan vaadu malakkengal malaynaadu Kochamalai korandu malakkengal malaynaadu Paramashivan vaadu malakkengal malaynaadu கைரேகை பார்த்து சொல்லும் கைரேகை பார்த்து கைரேகை பாதம் கைரேகை பார்த்து சொல்வே ஆசைப்பட்டவன் அரவன் அம்பட பொம்மட அத்தனை அருமையாக பொடி சொல்லுமே சொன்ன பொடி தவறாக சொன்ன பொடி தவறாக மன்னாதி மன்னரையெல்லாம் எங்கமுன்னாலே மன்னாதி மன்னரையெல்லாம் எங்கமுன்னாலே தந்தானம் 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 போல தந்தானம் போல
A big round of applause for them. Now it is an absolute pleasure for me to introduce a friend, a fellow Bangalorean, a person who has been part of ISME for the last 15 years, I think, to come and take this program forward. A warm welcome to Sandra O'Rourke.
Becky's not wrong. We've been friends for a long time. Probably over 20 years or so. And we've been talking on multiple occasions about doing something together. And I'm so glad that finally we've been able to collaborate as co-chairs for this 5th International International Society for Music Education's South Asia Regional Conference. And she's right, I've been a part of ISME for over 15 years now. There was once upon a time that I was the only member in ISME, or the first one, and I used to go around talking to people, why don't you join ISME? What is ISME? So I thought, for those of you who know, this is a refresher, and for those of you who don't, well, it's time we know why you're here, the purpose we're here, what ISME is all about, and why, by you all choosing to be here, you've taken a step in the right direction towards building music education in India. So thank you all again, a very warm welcome for being here this morning. And I'm just going to tell you in a couple of minutes, really quickly, when somebody asks you, where were you all these days? What were you doing? I saw these really interesting pictures of you. You can tell them, well, I was a part of the ISME South Asia Regional Conference. The International Society for Music Education is the world's largest and the most premier organization for music education. And it's scattered around about 90 countries. Now, the whole of ISME is divided into 5 different regions. It started off with the Asia Pacific region, which was about, came about in existence in the late 1950s and 1960s. Then it moved to the Latin American or Latin and Pan-American region. That was the second one that came about. The next one was Pan-Africa. So across Africa as well, we have one region that spans the entire continent. And then ISME grew its network along Europe, so Central and Eastern Europe. And finally, we, South Asians, are the baby region. We're this is the 5th conference, so we're a little older than that. So our journey here started in 2015. 2015, a little bit of laying the ground. A couple of people came from Sempre, and they were here. You'll find a lot more about this in your conference booklets, which if you scan the QR code, you'll be able to get it, and you can read the interesting history. But we are the baby region, and it was set up primarily to help build our voices. Because what we're talking about, what our problems are, what our challenges that we face, the strengths we have as a collective people, it may be different, it may be unique, it may be quite differently placed from other regions. So that's why we came about and we exist. Now, ISME South Asia is growing, and we're hoping each one tell one. So you're here today, go and tell others how you can be a part of this network. ISME also has not just conferences like this, which happen every other year. So every year one year you have the World Conference. This year we have it happening in Montreal. The other year is generally supposed to be a regional conference. So all the regions across the world have their regional conferences, sometimes in their own languages as well, when the non-World Conference year happens. Now, interestingly, what happened with us is we were supposed to have this 5th regional conference in Kathmandu, Nepal. And that was in November last year. Unfortunately, because of the riots, there were issues. The conference venue moved here, and oh boy, am I glad, because this is home to me, and I can, with Becky's help and Sri Lakshmi and a whole bunch of people, which, you'll hear about them throughout these 3 days, we were able to bring it, and it's all happening now. So we're very, 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 very excited, including our sponsors as well. Now, I'm going to invite very quickly our past president of ISME, to come and share about his joy at being here, but he's also going to read a special welcome note from our current sitting ISME president. Let me tell you something a little bit about Professor Boa Lung. He was, he'll be retiring soon, but he's been at the Education University of Hong Kong for many number of years, and he's one of the most well-known figures in the academic world in Hong Kong, as well as worldwide.
widely published with over 150 journal articles, books, and monographs, all kinds of excellent work that comes from him, including he's ranked among the 1% scientists in the world, which we're really honored to say, with him as our president leading, and now past president. His work largely stems on advocating for Cantonese opera, and he'll talk about that as well in his keynote speech. We're thanking you, Professor Boalung, for coming and being a part of this. I'd like to invite you to come and share a few words, and also to please read our current president, Professor Patricia Gonzalez Moreno, her keynote, her welcome speech as well. Thank you. Please put your hands together for him. After he comes and he speaks, we'll hear from Nishan Shakya about the conference that was supposed to happen in Nepal and a little greeting. So over to you, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sandra. It's really my honor to be here. I'm so excited, to be honest, because this is my first time in India. Of course, my first time in Bangalore too. Okay, so I found this country very, very friendly. The people are so nice and kind. I really feel the friendship. Okay, and I'm so glad that ISME can have so many friends, and I hope you all can join ISME sometime, someday, and come to our World Conference. Well, just not too long, in July, we are going to have our World Conference in Canada, Montreal, okay, and 2 years later, another World Conference in Bangkok, not so far away, okay, so 2028 in Bangkok, Thailand. So, let me read out the message from our current president, Professor Patricia. She said, "Distinguished guests, colleagues, students, artists, and friends, it is a great pleasure to welcome you to the 5th ISME South Asia Regional Conference. Although I truly regret not being able to join you in person, I'm with you in spirit and send my warmest greetings to everyone gathered for this special occasion. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the organizing committee for their dedication, vision, and hard work in making this conference possible. My heartfelt thanks go to Rebecca Thomas Koleko, conference organizing co-chair and academic director of the Bangalore School of Music and Fine Arts, and Professor Heidi Westerlund and Sandra Oberoi, who have played an important role in the development of South Asia Regional Conference, and to all those whose commitment and generosity have created this valuable space for dialogue, collaboration, and musical exchange. SARC has become a vibrant and inspiring example of how regional conferences strengthen our global music education community while honoring the cultural richness and diversity of each region. It continues to grow as an important gathering that fosters meaningful connections, collaborations, and exchange across South Asia and beyond. At a time when the world continues to face social, cultural, and educational challenges, gatherings like this remind us of this important role that music and music education play in fostering empathy, creativity, dialogue, and human connection. To all participants, presenters, performers, researchers, teachers, and students, thank you for contributing your voices, ideas, experiences, and music to this conference. I hope these days together will bring inspiring conversations, meaningful learning experiences, memorable musical engagements, and new collaborations. I wish you all a successful and enriching conference. Thank you.
Nishan Shakya, could I have you from Kathmandu Jazz Academy? Let's put our hands together and welcome him. Thank you.
morning, everyone. I'm Nishant Shakya, and today I'm speaking on behalf of the Kathmandu Jazz Conservatory and our academic director, Mr. Abhishek Padra. First of all, I would like to thank ISME, Civilist Academy, Amplify Her, and the Bangalore School of Music and Fine Arts for making it possible for this conference to continue, even through the difficult circumstances that happened back at home. As many of you know, this regional conference was originally planned to take place in Kathmandu in 2025, but the protests happened, the riots happened, we had a government collapsing and a new interim government. And so, due to also the elections were not making it not so clear how the situation would be back home, so we had to take the difficult decision to not host this event. So, and this was a very difficult decision. At the same time, we are also grateful that the conference has found a new home here in Bangalore. It means that the work, the conservations, and the regional connections can still continue. At the moment, things in Nepal are relatively stable because of the new government, and we're going through a very transitional phase back in Kathmandu. And so we sincerely hope that this is not the end of the journey for ISME in Kathmandu. And I'd also like to say that Kathmandu Jazz Conservatory remains committed to music education in Nepal and South Asia. And we would be very honored to maybe host or contribute in any way to ISME in the future. And on behalf of Mr. Abhishek and everyone at KJC, I would like to thank all the organizers, partners, presenters, and participants for your understanding, support, and flexibility. Thank you, and I wish everyone a meaningful and inspiring conference.
Thank you, Nishant. At every conference, we have very special people who present keynote speeches right at the beginning of the day when you're bright and fresh. Now, we are absolutely delighted to have three very different keynote speakers over the 3 days that we've gathered. We have someone from the Indian classical community. We have someone coming not someone, a whole group of people coming all the way from Kathmandu. And they will present something for us tomorrow. And finally, as I said earlier, you will hear Professor Bowa Leung present his keynote speech on this Saturday. Gosh, I've lost a track of time, haven't I? And we've just started. Well, I'm so honored to have here in our room, in our midst, Vidya Subramaniam, who is the founder of Vidya Subramaniam Academy, a social enterprise imparting online education in Carnatic music and other traditional Indian arts to students from all over the world for nearly 2 decades. She has, by the way, Vidya is a chartered accountant, as are many musicians in India. We wear plenty of hats, don't we? She's a chartered accountant, all India, second rank. Boy, oh boy, with an MBA from Boston College, USA. Her exemplary work has been featured on BBC World News, ZTV's Naya Bharat series, and DD's India Changemakers program. She was also conferred with the Women Transforming India Award in 2021 by the Niti Aayog and United Nations. Her honors include, those of you from Tamil Nadu will recognize this, the Kalaimani Award from the Government of Tamil Nadu, Outstanding Woman Entrepreneur Award from SAFA, this is an apex body of SARC, and CA Entrepreneur Award from the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, the Devi Award by the New Indian Express Group, Champion of Chennai Award, Homepreneur Award, and Vocational Excellence Award from the Rotary Club of Chennai Spotlight. Something that she's created, especially over the pandemic, is this huge network of teachers, over 150 of them, providing Indian classical music and training in other art forms as well online. So we're going to hear from her how, just pick her brain probably, how she managed to do what she did, how she's reached where she has, and we'll have lots of things to take away from her inspiring talk. Will you please put your hands together and welcome this lovely lady this morning who will deliver our keynote speech for today. Thank you, Vidya.
Namaste, good morning to all of you here. I'm Vidya Subramanian. I'm a Carnatic vocalist. and a social entrepreneur based in Chennai. At the outset, I would like to thank ISME and particularly the South Asia Regional Conference team, the organizing committee, scientific committee, and all of you here, educators, artists, students, who are sustaining, fostering, and nourishing the arts and music ecosystem in India. So, thank you for hearing me and for this wonderful opportunity to talk to all of you today. I stand before you not as an academician or a theorist, but more as a practitioner who has spent the last 2 decades evolving a social enterprise that is focused on 2 aspects in parallel. One is providing access to India's classical art forms, in particular classical music, Carnatic music, to a diverse student body across the world, while retaining the essence of traditional pedagogy, but while using technology as an enabler and creating dignified livelihoods to teachers and educators across India, especially women. The question that I would like to explore here with all of you is how can a pedagogy and a genre which is believed to be nearly 2000 years old remain artistically deep while becoming globally accessible and inclusive? So I want to start with a little bit of a background about myself. I know the bio has been read out, but I didn't really start out my career as a music educator. After my MBA in the US, I worked in corporate America for a couple of years. And from a young age, I've had the honor of learning Carnatic music under one of India's foremost maestros, the late Padma Bhushan Laluri Sri Jayaraman. And my training under him was in a very traditional Guru Shishya lineage method. So I don't have a single degree or diploma in music. And I've always looked at music as an intrinsic part of my life and heritage, rather than as a career or vocation. So I started thinking a little deeper about my connection with music when I took a maternity break over 20 years ago. And started teaching. And that is when I started dabbling with online teaching. And there were some learnings that I got from that quickly. That the technology, while being an enabler, was also a limiting factor. So what I found is that for the online method of teaching to work, it had to be one-on-one. The one-to-many model did not work very effectively. And I'll talk a little bit in detail about that down the line, but that was one of my early learnings. And with one-on-one, it becomes a little harder to scale. So I started scaling my academy and building a team of teachers, and that's evolved. And we should remember that this was more than 20 years ago when online learning was in a nascent stage. It was not as common as today. You know, post-COVID, literally every street has an online teacher teaching in varied things to students across the globe. But back then it was very new, and there was a lot of skepticism also around it. So that is kind of how it started. And a couple of incidents that personally made me realize that there were some gaps in the system that could be filled by a social enterprise. One was that nearly about 15 years ago, I was driving back home and performed a concert in Chennai, very close to my house. It was almost 9:30 at night and it was raining. And I saw my co-artist, my violinist, standing at the bus stop. I stopped and I asked her, do you want to ride? It's not safe. And her answer really got me thinking. I said, why don't you take a cab or I'll drop you home? She said, my house is really far. If I took a cab, basically whatever honorarium I earn today would be spent on the cab fare. And that was something which really got me thinking about how little artists get paid, especially when they focus on classical art forms. And another incident that really shook me was when, was very personal. I was getting on stage to perform a concert, and again I was an up-and-coming person, keen to make a mark. And just 2 minutes before the concert, the organizer shoved a contract in front of me, and she said, and it was on stamp paper, she said, you need to sign this. And I said, there's only 5 minutes for the concert to start, so I need to read it. I'll sign it a little later after I've had a chance to read it. And she looked a little annoyed about that, and she didn't say anything. So I took the contract home that day and I read it, and the next morning I raised some questions about some of the wordings, and I was already a qualified chartered accountant and I knew about contracts. And her reaction really took me aback, and she got into a very angry mode. She said, who are you to question me? This is the contract that all our artists sign. And these are big name people and they've never questioned me. And you are a nobody and you're asking these questions. And I said, I'm very aware that I'm a nobody, but I'm also a person who's had some legal training, and there are a few clauses in which I have some questions. All I'm asking is for clarification, and I didn't know that there was a contract to be signed before the concert. So the whole thing, and then we decided to part ways as amicably as possible, but I also realized that, I could walk away from that situation because I was not financially dependent on that income. Whereas there were a lot of artists who would have just signed something without reading or even without agreeing to it because of the financial pressures that they were under. And I realized that, if we really want to support our arts, we have to create meaningful ways in which our artists have, recurring income streams. It should not be like a one-off honorarium here and there, or, teaching some students, they drop out and then you don't know if you're going to get paid. And especially for women, when you have that access to a dignified income stream, the way the family treats them, the society treats them, the acceptance of their word, their say in the decisions gets transformed. And these were two things I wanted to highlight that kind of set me thinking that I should create a platform to provide opportunities to practitioners, the not so famous people, but who are still very skilled and willing to share their knowledge. Can I have the next slide? Actually, I think it's the previous. So when we talk about sustainability, sometimes we tend to interpret it rather narrowly in terms of, like an environmental or something always. But in music education, sustainability can be interpreted in varied ways. One is, about the culture. How do you sustain a traditional art form while retaining the artistic depth? Because we can't try to scale up and do things where we lose the artistic depth and everybody is just dabbling or learning in a very superficial way. The second thing is the pedagogy. When we learn traditional art forms, and again with my own personal experience learning from a master musician, my guru could trace his lineage to Saint Tyagaraja. His great-great-grandfather learned from Saint Tyagaraja, and many of the compositions were passed orally from teacher to student, generation after generation, and that is a very precious thing in itself. And in Carnatic music, we call it Bani. And in Hindustani, it is called the Gharana. So the traditions that are passed on in every generation, they deserve to be retained because they are like distinctive threads under the broader umbrella of the genre that is being taught. So how do these outlive these individual gurus, and how do we transfer them at scale? The third question that I would like to think about or ponder about is sustaining the people itself, right? Like the ecosystem. The world is rapidly changing, technology is changing. Now we are talking about AI replacing teachers. How do we nurture and make the ecosystem of, artists, educators, performers, learners, composers, organizers, all thrive in this? And lastly, the economic aspect, right? Creating dignified livelihoods and income stream. And again, in the context of the music that I perform, this is a very nuanced thing, because Carnatic music is traditionally inextricably linked to the Bhakti movement, where one surrendered to God and composed and sang. And the greatest compositions that we have today were the result of the Bhakti movement, starting from Purandaradasa, who is known as the father of Carnatic music, and the Carnatic Trinity, who have created a wealth of compositions and spawned an entire ecosystem which is helping so many artists flourish today. And each of these great composers basically composed purely out of devotion. They didn't earn a penny for themselves. And that is the tradition which, in which this ecosystem has grown. So the traditional approach to learning is that the teacher does not set a price for the class. The student may offer a Guru Dakshina of his or her choice, depending on their willingness and ability to pay. While this sounds very ideal, but it has its own challenges today. Teachers also have their bills to pay. And likewise, if a student doesn't remunerate a teacher, it becomes awkward for the teacher to ask them to pay. And the other side also, by giving a lot of power in the hands of the Guru, while it is, again, traditionally based on surrendering to the Guru, what if the Guru doesn't share the knowledge willingly or is not available to teach on a regular basis? A student who doesn't pay a fee cannot really question the Guru under those circumstances. So these are all some difficult questions which need to be answered for these traditional art forms to continue to be sustained. Can we please move on to the next slide? So scaling is also an important thing. As I mentioned earlier, initially when I was a standalone teacher, I found that I could teach about 20-25 students online. But I also realized as a person with business training that the demand was very high. This was like 20 years back, and I lived in upstate New York. I would literally get calls every day from people wanting to learn online. Initially, people were asking for phone classes, but I realized very quickly that online with a video calling was far more effective. But I was also very quick to realize that getting on a large conference call with 10 students was not going to effectively translate into learning outcomes for the student. Because unlike the in-person classes, when it becomes online, it's only one person who can sing or play at a time, and the others pretty much listen on mute. So when the group size becomes large, the learning becomes very slow, and especially when children are involved, there is a tendency to lose focus if you are not really actively engaged in singing or playing at that time. So it had to be a one-on-one model is what I felt. Of course, there are many models happening today, but back then, 20 years ago, I felt it had to be a one-on-one model, which was like an aggregator model, where the teachers join as affiliates. Each of them gets a set of students placed under themselves. That way they can teach in their own unique method. Again, I wanted to mention about the Bani here. They can pass on the learning that they have got from their gurus without diluting. So I don't need to really set the syllabus. I can give broad guidance, but the teachers are given a lot of freedom to customize the classes based on their own singing or learning styles, and also based on the aptitude of the student. That way we can cater to a very diverse set of students in terms of the background, the age group, locations, and so on. And in terms of building the model, we put in a lot of effort into our teacher recruitment, training, giving them opportunities to shadow successful teachers, and also we ensured that we were very welcoming to a diverse body of students, because that is another challenge when one approaches a very traditional guru in the Indian ecosystem. Some prior knowledge is expected, or they expect total surrender to the teacher, being available whenever the teacher is available. And today's students, honestly speaking, have a lot of demands on their time, and most of them look at music as a passion or a hobby. So we need to accept that they are going to be super busy themselves. So if somebody is making time to learn classical music amidst all the other options out there, We should make them feel happy and welcome. And of course, we should also accommodate people who may not otherwise have access. So it is not only always the wealthier people, people living abroad. We also have to look at people in tier 2, tier 3 cities in India where we don't have access to classical music teachers, students with special needs, students from less privileged backgrounds. So that flexibility in terms of the pricing, in terms of the lesson plan, and also linguistically, offering the classes in multiple languages, all that will help us and has helped us reach a diverse set of students. And by adopting a social entrepreneurship model, we have kept the costs and overheads very low. That way, we've been able to pass on good earnings to the teachers and also create goodwill among students, thereby leading to organic growth. And also a very important thing I have realized over time is that for an arts-based organization or ecosystem to thrive, one is that it should have an income stream for itself. Contrary to what anybody else may say, unless the people who put in efforts actually earn money, they are going to drop out if something else takes up their time. We have to understand that volunteering, while it is nice, is very difficult to sustain. So one is that the ecosystem must be able to generate regular income stream for the people who put in the efforts. Secondly, a low-cost model is easier to sustain because you don't have the pressures of recurring costs on advertising or things like that. And also, flexibility is very important for different stakeholders. Like students need flexibility in scheduling, flexibility in terms of the lesson plan to suit their goals. There could be weeks when a student doesn't have time to practice. The teacher should still be willing to work with them, do some review, yet keep the lesson interesting so that some learning continues. And from the side of the teachers, again, when we are an enterprise which has 90% women, there are going to be personal challenges that they face. So we need to be aware of that, give cognizance to their multiple demands in terms of their personal and professional lives, and make them feel comfortable and welcome. Can I have the next slide? So now I want to talk a little bit about the traditional approach to Carnatic music learning. It is an ecosystem where I find that there are a small set of very well-known, very famous, amazingly talented artists with global recognition. And there is a huge set of tier 2. When I say tier 2, it's not necessarily in terms of merit, but more in terms of the recognition, the network that they have. The next set of artists is a bigger group, and many times they struggle to monetize their talent and find a meaningful income stream for themselves. And many brilliant artists and teachers remain invisible. That's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is there are many students who don't know where to begin. Because there is again this very small set of people who come from traditional families where exposure to Indian classical music is given from an early age. But there's this larger segment of people who may have heard a classical music performance, gotten inspired, or may have a friend who's learning, but they don't know who to approach, how to start, whether they can learn, whether they have the talent. There's so many questions and people don't know how to go about it. The strengths of the traditional approach is that it offers an opportunity to learn in an in-depth and nuanced way if you are lucky to find the right guru for yourself. And again, when you learn from a guru, you incorporate the style of the guru, you learn over a long period of time, and basically the guru is not just a music teacher, the person also serves as a mentor. Like personally, again, I would like to mention the amazing mentorship I got from my guru, Lal Gudi Sri Jairaman, because there were many things I learned. I was a young child when I learned from him, but I could see his amazing knowledge, willingness to share with his students, work ethic, his amazing skills at documentation, creativity as a performer and composer. These were very awe-inspiring, and his time management, more practical life skills like that also helped me a lot. So the guru becomes larger than life, becomes a mentor. And as I said, the traditional approach is that of Vidya Danam, where it is, giving away the knowledge as a gift to the student. Now, what are the challenges that this system faces in today's context? The system may have worked beautifully a couple of 100 years ago, no question about that. What are the practical challenges and barriers today? One is the geographical spread. Today's students can, they travel a lot, they relocate frequently, teachers relocate, and even, I'm sure all of you in Bangalore will relate. If you have a teacher in Bangalore who's 20 kilometers away, just commuting to the teacher's house every week, it's not going to work. You're going to drop out very quickly. Second challenge is, as an aspiring teacher or a performer, how do I access networks? Because that is one thing I personally experienced. I don't come from a family of musicians. I'm the first person in my family to seriously take up arts as a passion or a full-time occupation. And I found that and I'm not saying this with any hint of negativity, but this is the practical thing. Most artists come from long lineages. Like I say, they trace their own, they come, their father or mother, grandparents, everybody is a musician, so they have that network. And it is very difficult for outsiders without that background to break into the network. And also, as I said, while the Guru Shishya lineage is a great strength, it can also sometimes work against the student. If the student does something to displease the teacher, they can be cut off very quickly. And all the hard work that you have put in over the efforts can quickly come undone. And it's the same thing as a teacher. You may have spent years and years working with a student, and they may decide to say, okay, I'm moving on from you to another student. And that's again a huge disappointment for the teacher, because they really thought that this was their most promising student, but has been poached, if I can use that word, by another artist. So these are all relatively, less spoken about challenges, but they are also real. And there are also these talented people, aspiring people who don't have the marketing or financial clout to get opportunities, to meet people, to get that one breakthrough. And even if they get a breakthrough, the pay is not much. So these are all real challenges that the ecosystem faces. Next slide. So now, how do I use an online model? And when we talk about technology, many times people talk about it as if it is going to replace tradition. And I honestly feel we don't need to approach it like that. We can think about using technology to amplify tradition. And when I say amplify, it means, reaching more people, more diverse people, providing work opportunities to more educators. And technology that way has really brought down the costs and barriers. And it is up to us as educators and students to use these opportunities effectively. For example, some of the ways it has helped us at Vidya Subramanian Academy is the live one-on-one classes. And again, when we talk about AI and all that, right, I still find that when I talk to students, they really enjoy the hour of interaction they have with their teacher. And it's not just the music, it's just the fact that the classes become really engaging for them, and the teacher becomes a mentor in multiple ways. And that is something I'm quite confident that technology cannot fully replace. So that one-on-one model has really helped us retain the students. Secondly, using technology to record the classes also helps, because while the asynchronous mode of learning in the online, where you and your teacher cannot sing simultaneously, proves to be a challenge. The other side is, again, it's very inexpensive to record the class, the entire class video, and share it with the student. So student can sit and practice and perfect at their own pace and time. And also, through an online model, we can build a global community of teachers, students, wherever they are, and give them opportunities for online learning as well as interaction through online concerts, performances, workshops. And it is also a good way to look at ways to use technology to supplement learning through apps, having self-study lessons that students can watch on YouTube and develop their learning. As I said, my experience is drawn basically from growing my social enterprise, which is basically an all-women core team, and 90% of my team is women. And we have about 150 educators located all across India. And our vision here is to take India's classical music, Hindustani and Carnatic, as well as the other classes we offer, Bharatanatyam, yoga, sloka chanting, language teaching, Vedic math, to students in every corner of the world. And today we have cumulatively reached 10,000 plus learners, out of which 2,000 are active learners, and empowered about 150 educators. And we also provide a lot of free information through podcasts and video lessons for people to self-study. And I find that that is also a very important part of our social mission, because arts is a nice thing to have, but when budget is tight, practically that's the first thing that gets next. Same thing with, when people get time constrained, first thing they drop for themselves or their children is an arts class. While we may personally disagree with that approach, that is the harsh reality today. So by having self-study lessons, we have been able to reach a lot of learners who may not have the inclination to pay and take a class. However, they still benefit through self-learning, and many times people write to us saying, hey, I've been following your YouTube channel for 2 years. I now have the budget to actually commit to a class, or I have completed my education, I have some time to spare. And that's again one of the ways in which we can feel the impact. And a few things in terms of the model that we have been quite steadfast about is that we have been very patient in our growth. And why I wanted to mention this is today the scenario of online teaching in India has changed very drastically after COVID, because that was like a boom time and people started looking at this as edtech. A lot of investments came, aggressive advertising, high churn in terms of teachers and students. But our model has been very slow growing, we have never spent a penny on advertising, and 100% organic growth. While this seems like when you look at the impact numbers, right? It's not like we've reached millions of students or done something like that, but it's been a deeper impact. Many of our students have been with us for 20 years. And many of them have become teachers in their local communities. And many of them have, come back to us, completed our exams, and joined our teaching team, and they are being mentored by our senior teachers. So it's really created maybe a small impact, but a deep impact. And it has also built confidence. When I talk to the teachers in my team, the first thing they tell me is more than anything, they feel very confident about themselves. And when they have students who have been with them for so many years, and they see the students blossom over time, that is very, very fulfilling, because that long-term relationship building is something that is very special to the Guru Shishya tradition, and we have been able to retain the essence of that approach. And also, as I said, the deep focus has made sure that we are in no hurry to grow. So, and because we don't have rents to pay, everybody works from home, we are not under any financial pressure, and I have always had this approach of having the teachers as my affiliates rather than my employees. While that makes the downside risk low for me personally, it's also a huge gain for the teachers, because they are more like micro entrepreneurs. And when you look at India now, 75 years after independence, the female participation in the workforce is still abysmally low. We have so many skilled women across industry sectors, but many of them leave the workforce due to marriage, maternity, personal constraints. And often for women, and as a mother to two myself, commuting long distances for a job becomes a huge challenge. And if the job comes to your home, you're more likely to continue to be able to do it. And I think for us personally, that has worked, because many of our teachers are, like I said, they have families to support, they have elders to take care of, children to take care of. And when we give them a flexible, work environment where their working hours are staggered and based on their personal preference, it really helps them blossom and do an excellent job. Can I have the next one? So now when I talk about scaling, right, I'm going to look at it from a couple of different perspectives. For students, one of the things which I have felt deeply about is that the curriculum, to be really impactful for a student, has to be customized to their goals, their strengths and weaknesses, and the time commitment they can give for their practice. And traditional approach has been rather prescriptive, where the teacher expects you to give your all, and if you don't have time to practice, basically the teacher says we will be doing the same thing again and again in class till you get it. And as I said, today's students genuinely are time constrained. You know, we have students who are preparing for NEET or JEE, people who are busy working professionals. We can't impose such things if we want to include more people. You know, we can be very strict if we want to teach only like 5 students who will take up music as their full-time careers no matter what. But if you want to reach 5,000 students who will enjoy, learn something, become rasikas, or start appreciating music, and maybe out of the 5,000, 5 will still become performers full-time. But we don't want to place those as barriers. So by giving a structured but flexible curriculum. So what we offer is live classes. We also have 6 levels of exams, which are like an add-on. So students can opt for the exams. And when it comes to the curriculum of the exams, I've studied different exam options available across the world, and designed the curriculum such that there is a practical, theory and an oral component. And the exams are also offered online, one-on-one, very similar to our lessons, with another teacher from our team acting as an examiner. And the student gets customized feedback to help them move to the next level, and also a showcasing opportunity when they complete every level of exams. And there are also a good number of students who tell us they don't want to do any of these exams and they want to learn, in a very relaxed way, and we are absolutely fine with that. And likewise, there are students who join when they are older adults. And they say that, at age 50 plus or 60 plus, they are not going to have the dexterity in their voice to be doing all the rigorous practice that a child can do. They just want to learn some devotional songs for their self-fulfillment, and we are very happy to customize. And very often, these goals are pretty fluid. Somebody who says, don't teach me sarigama, just teach me songs. After 6 months, when we talk to them, counsel them and say, hey, you're doing well, but you're still struggling a little bit with some foundational things like Shruti and Tala, maybe spending 10 minutes every lesson on some swara-based exercises will help you do these songs, sing these songs or play these songs better, and they're actually willing to listen to us. Maybe on day 1, they were not ready for it, but when you build that trust, and that's why I said a slow approach actually works really well, because the whole experience becomes very precious for the student, and also the teacher invests in the student in a gentle way. It makes the whole ecosystem sustain for a long time. And also showcasing the students, I've learned a lot. Today we have completed more than 40 student showcases over 10 years and showcased more than 1,000 students on YouTube primarily. Students have been all across the world. And the biggest learning for me is that I don't need to only showcase the prodigies. One thing that I find is most gurus like to showcase their best performing students so that it creates a wow factor. But what we have consciously done is we have showcased students of all levels, varied capabilities, students with special needs, and actually it has not only motivated and encouraged the student who is being showcased, it has motivated others to reach out to us, because I realized over time, and this was a great learning for me, there are a lot of people who are on the fence when it comes to classical music learning, who are very unsure of their capabilities, whether they will actually be able to learn and satisfy their teachers' expectations, or they think that their voice is bad, or they're not skilled, or they think it is too difficult for them to do, or too late. I didn't start as a kid, now I'm 40 years old, it's too late. And when they actually see another 40-year-old or a 60-year-old actually attempting, then they feel more enthused about, reaching out to a teacher and starting to learn. And again, facilitating some peer interactions is also important. So we started doing some chamber concerts in Chennai. And again, post-COVID, as I said, the competition increased tremendously. So we realized that by sticking to only an online model, people were sometimes feeling a little disappointed that they couldn't actually come and meet people. So I have a small space in Chennai where we meet every quarter, offer different things like workshops as well as performance and showcasing opportunities for students to grow. And we also do the same thing online as well, so that students who are not able to physically travel can still perform online. And the whole idea is to make it a holistic learning rather than a result-oriented learning. So instead of saying, if you join and learn from us, in 3 months you will be able to do ABC, we say, you drive the process. We will assess you and we will try to make it as effective for your goals and your aptitude. And I find that again helps us do a better job in terms of the learning outcomes, and also providing the supplemental materials is very helpful for students to learn more theory on their own time, looking at the podcasts and things like that. Can I please have the next slide? And when it comes to the educators, I also find that one is the opportunity to transition whatever skills they bring to the table to an effective online model. Because when I talked a little bit about the skepticism early on, I realized that most artists were skeptical because they were just trying to teach the same way that they would teach in person without adapting the pedagogical methods for an online style of teaching. And then again, in COVID, what happened was many artists, the entire concert ecosystem came to a standstill. So artists had to find another alternative income stream. So again, there was, all these large group calls, where 20 people get on a Zoom call, and pretty much it's like the teacher and the best performing student singing, and the rest of them are on mute listening in. While this may be still very effective for advanced level students, for beginners it's not going to cause good learning outcomes. So therefore, by providing skills training, and when I say skills training, we have an orientation program where teachers go through different steps, and that also helps us understand whether the teacher's approach fits our work culture. Because oftentimes there are teachers who are excellent performers but who have not worked out well for us because they don't have the patience to teach a beginner, or they don't have the patience to help a student who is struggling with basic things like Shruti alignment or Thala. They expect a very high base standard to begin with. And whereas we want a teacher who's comfortable teaching any level of student, any age group. So that helps us determine the right fit. And I also find that it's very, very important to continue to upskill, because the technology, while being an enabler, is also a disruptor. As I said, we were teaching on Skype for many years, and then Skype closed. Now we moved to Teams, and while this is a very simple transition for most people in a corporate environment, for artists this is incredibly hard, and that is what we are realizing. Most artists struggle when it comes to things like, how do you make your class video downloadable as opposed to just viewable, and these are things which we have to also do a little bit of convincing to teachers, because most of them look at themselves as top-notch performers, and when we give them logistical things to do, follow-up work to do, so they sometimes resist, because they are not conditioned to think of that as part of the job description. However, it is the reality. There's so much competition. If we are not willing to adapt, grow, and be flexible, we are going to lose out. And continuing to have that trust-based approach. I don't make teachers sign legal contracts, because I find that when people work happily and when they feel comfortable, they are more likely to stay with you and do a really good job. And again, that comes back to some of the specifics in the South Asia region, where there are so many barriers to women entering and excelling in the workforce. And I've always felt that if the first thing I told a prospective teacher is you have to sign this legal contract, most of the times their families would say, no, you don't really need to join this thing, this outfit. We are not comfortable having you sign any contracts. And again, being that source of counseling and support is also important, because many teachers went through crisis during COVID, and personal challenges like health setbacks and things like that. And if we are able to be a platform where we take care of the marketing, the fee setting, provide them that backup if they have any need for help, that makes the attrition rate incredibly low. And when I hear things like people saying, okay, I was able to purchase my own flat, I could support my family when my spouse lost his or her job, or when there was a teacher who lost her spouse very unexpectedly, she still could stand on her own feet and help her family. And these are all very, as I said, the impact is not very large in terms of numbers, but it is meaningful. Now can I move on to the next slide? And again, as a non-academic person, I was curious to do some reading on what academicians say about the effectiveness of online learning. And there was a particularly good and relevant paper by a person called Dr. Jeff Roy, which was published by the University of Texas, where Jeff studied online teaching in both Hindustani and Carnatic traditions. And one of his most relevant conclusions was that online lessons maintain quality learning. And that's something I can say from my personal experience, over the last 20 years. But what changes online? One is, as I said, simultaneously doing things with your peers and your teachers is impossible. So that is a big change. And if you're especially learning an instrument, right? Many times for beginners, your teacher physically comes to you, changes the way you hold the instrument, changes your fingering. That's not going to happen. They're going to be able to show you something over a video call. You still may or may not get it perfectly. And another important thing that comes to my mind is the informal immersion. Like many times when we learn from a guru, we may stay back over a coffee or lunch, have a chat, that kind of immersion happens, and you get inspired by the anecdotes and the things they share. But in an online class, what happens is, you log in at 8 o'clock, you log out at 9 o'clock. And while there is nothing wrong, I think it's very efficient. Like I said, personally as a mom, it helps me plan my day because I know that when I log in, my student is going to log in. It's an hour of lesson, maybe another 5-10 minutes to wind up, and I'm back to my kitchen or doing whatever else I need to do. And today it's becoming very, very difficult to sustain that in person because your student gets caught in traffic, not able to come, starts late, you've planned other things, and so on. So it's lack of informal immersion, while a challenge, sometimes also helps us juggle many things more efficiently. But what actually I find is really good with online classes is that it creates an ecosystem for independent practice, because we give students a lot of tools. We don't necessarily have to teach them every single technique, because today's students are very smart. They have a lot of exposure. Even small children, they know a lot more about going online, doing deep research, and so on. So when you teach a small Tyagaraja Kriti and tell the student, next lesson, come to me and talk to me about Tyagaraja, we learn a lot from them. So it's no longer like, the teacher has to teach everything and the student is helpless without the guru. So rather than that, the guru can be a facilitator, encourage independent thinking and analysis. And also, there are students who simply don't have time to practice. Instead of, turning them away, see how you can use that 1 hour of the student's time, give them the best possible tools. If they can, they will practice. If they don't, I have students who just play the class recording while driving to work, and they get something out of it. Maybe they progress a little slower than somebody who puts in a lot of practice, but never mind. That's the best they can do because they have so many demands on their time. Another important thing is the analytical learning. When you tell students, okay, this composition was sung by 5 great artists. These are the YouTube links to their concerts. Go, listen, analyze, tell me what similarities and differences you find in their approach. It's mind-blowing to see what students are capable of telling you. And also the learner autonomy can be really, really developed. As I said, we have students with special needs like autism, visual challenges. We have students who have ADHD. So customizing the lessons to make sure that those students learn really well is also very, very impactful and meaningful. And what has not changed, whether online or offline, is the rapport you build. So when you have an assigned teacher, so that is why I've been very steadfast in that model where you assign a teacher and that person is your teacher, and you work out the lesson scheduling and the lesson plan with that teacher. On the other hand, if you make it, okay, I have this scheduling app, so if you're free at 5 p.m. on Thursdays, whichever teacher is available, they log in and they teach you. That's not going to help in the rapport building because the approach is going to be different, the whole vibe is going to keep changing. So I feel that continuity in the approach is important, building the trust and gently nudging the students' practice. I mean, without the practice, the learning is not going to happen. So you can modify the exercises and the activities that you give to suit today's students, but still the practice has to be put in by the student. And overall mentorship is also something that will not change. And that kind of translates to the research paper that I was mentioning to you, where, online, the findings was that the online teaching changes the simultaneous musical embodiment because of latency. The synchronous performance becomes virtually impossible, and learning becomes more analytical. And as I said, with Carnatic music, actually, this is particularly effective because every Carnatic composition is structured such that one person can perform it entirely, whether it's on voice or instrument. We don't have generally orchestra-based compositions. The same compositions are maybe performed in groups, but you don't need a group to perform any particular composition. And therefore, for this genre, this online one-on-one model is super effective. And also, finally, the technology has restructured the learning, but it has not diminished the sincerity of approach that is needed, both on part of the teacher and the student. And here again, one real life experience I wanted to share. One of our students who was learning violin lost her father very recently, and the mother said she's going to take a break. And obviously, we understand that it's been a traumatic thing for the child. And what was very surprising was that 2 weeks later, the teacher said, she's back to the classes. And I said, please reach out to the mother. They should not feel pressured. We are perfectly willing and happy to let the girl wait. And the parent apparently told the teacher that, my child has gone through some big change and is feeling it very hard to cope. And the fact that this class was a continuity, a thread, and she looked forward to that bonding with the teacher is something I don't want to disturb. And the fact that it is an online class, so given that now I am under severe time pressure, I don't have to drive her somewhere, and I know she's safe, she's just going to be home logging in. It's the same teacher she's known for 5 years, something I don't want to take a break from. And that was, for me, a huge learning and huge moment about how, we could create an impact with people in varied situations. And again, the fact that the rapport, the enrichment that a personalized musical journey under Guru's guidance provides, and also the entire excitement of learning and mastering an art form like Carnatic music, which is very difficult, is something that I feel is undiminished whether you choose the online or the offline moment. And I just have a couple more before. Now, what can we transfer across South Asia? South Asia has this cultural thread that runs across, and a few things I feel in terms of the traditional music pedagogy that are very essential to retain in the rapidly changing environment that we are in. First is, giving precedence to the important aspects of the genre that you're learning, going deep. Like in Carnatic music, listening is very, very important. There are a lot of nuances, what we call as gamakams, ways to embellish the notes. Those cannot be really learned by looking at a notation. The ear training is huge. So continuing to emphasize that. And again, in our musical tradition, memorizing the composition is very, very important because we draw upon our memory and our learning to improvise. So if you have not mastered 200 compositions, it's going to be hard for you to do justice to the improvisational aspects of Carnatic music. And again, having a mentor, a guru, who will hold your hand, help you out, but still give you that freedom and flexibility to grow and develop. And also building long-term artistic relationships as opposed to just giving priority to the degrees and certifications. I think all those things continue to be very important. And of course, I want to say the certifications are very helpful from an employability standpoint. So it's not like we can dispense with them, but the traditional strengths of the pedagogy should be retained, and I think many are transferable across musical genres. Secondly, how do we adapt the traditions to contemporary contexts without compromising on artistic integrity? And I feel that we can use technology to design the logistics efficiently, like talking about scheduling, giving feedback, assessments, opportunities to perform online and things like that. But we cannot digitize the actual content where you say, okay, you just download this, learn on your own, because it's not going to be very, very effective as a replacement for a teacher. It could be a solution if you simply don't have time or budget, but if you really want to learn well, develop the aesthetic judgment, the guidance of a live teacher becomes irreplaceable. Thirdly, I would like to talk about the role of technology in expanding access while preserving the cultural authenticity, because technology can really help us reach new students. And I could see this in two waves. When we started out, most of the students were from the Indian diaspora, relatively wealthier backgrounds, who were very keen to stay rooted to their culture wherever in the world they may be. COVID changed a lot of things for us. Everybody in India got comfortable with online learning, and we started getting a lot of queries from people in small towns and villages in India who simply could not afford the classes the same way as our NRI students could. And what I realized very quickly is, if we cannot cater to our own people, what is the use of, trying to scale and all that? So we had to make things a little more complicated in terms of the pricing, but at the same time ensure that access and affordability to a diverse set of students. Technology also helps us with documenting, by providing, when you digitize a notation, when you record a song, it's there forever. You can share it with 100 students. So it really makes things effective. And by bringing together peers through these group calls and other group, online performances, we do that, and we are able to live stream from Zoom to YouTube and reach out many others who get inspired by seeing their friends perform, or family members join in from across the world to see their children perform. All that also, enables us to reach many more people at affordable costs. So technology has not really replaced the guru, in my humble opinion. It's removed many of the barriers between the teacher and the learner. And how do we continue to make it more inclusive? By, as I said, keeping the costs affordable and making it a welcoming experience, and continuing to ensure that we sustain educators' livelihoods, because I think that is very, very important, because all people have a variety of things to choose from when it comes to livelihood. So if music education is not a viable career, then it's not going to attract top-notch talent. So basically, I would say South Asia can look at the future as not something like tradition versus innovation, but basically using innovation to intentionally redesign and continue the traditions. Next slide. So again, I've listed some practical takeaways for policymakers, institutions, and music educators. First thing for policymakers is just to remember that you have this ecosystem of educators out there, because we are a very small world, not a big economy or something like that, and our voices are often forgotten. So just remembering arts in whatever policy making they do will be very, very helpful. Funding ecosystems of teachers and helping build a distributed infrastructure, like this beautiful space out here, right? There are many, many cities in India or small towns in India which don't have these kind of infrastructural facilities for teachers to use for their teaching. Similarly, institutions, also by creating a democratic way where somebody can apply and become a student or a teacher. And while that sounds like very simple, it's actually rare in India. Like the way I see is that it's hard to break into those cliques. Many times when you say, when an artist sends out an application to perform, there's no acknowledgement, or there's nobody even to apply to. Basically, you just need to know the organizers. Otherwise, you don't get an invite. So what we have tried to do here is to democratize, where anybody can apply to be a teacher, and we actually have people who we have worked with for 2 or 3 years before they got their first student. We explain to them the gaps in their skills, we help them. But however, as a small organization, there's only so much we can do. There are a lot of teachers we are forced to turn away because they may lack they may entirely lack computer skills or business skills or English speaking skills. And there's only so much resources that we have internally that we can help them with. So for institutions, basically collaborating, building hybrid models intentionally and building communities and not just looking at it as a lesson, but more as an ecosystem really helps nurture that. And for the educators, again, having a positive attitude for any kind of student, teaching in a holistic way and building that independent learning, and also focusing on your self-learning, because I see far too many educators stop learning once they start teaching. And it's something, we all need to understand that it's a lifetime learn. We all know that. We need to do it, but sometimes we don't make time. So that is also very important. And I would like to just conclude with my vision, because that is one of the things ISME asked me to talk about for 2045 and beyond. Basically, my vision would be a world where every learner can access authentic music and any art form at affordable cost. Every teacher and educator can build a dignified livelihood. Every tradition can evolve without losing its soul. And every community sees arts and culture as a living force. So with this, I would like to conclude by thanking all of you for your patient listening. My sincere gratitude to the ISME SARC team, Rebecca Thomas, Sandra Oberoi, my good friend Sri Lakshmi, for inviting me, giving me this incredible opportunity. As I said, I don't have a single degree or diploma in music, so it's just been a discussion on my lived experience. So thank you all, and if we have time, I can take questions. If we're out of time, I'll stop here.
Let's put our hands together for such a